And now, two pigeons bemoaning the fact you can stream DirecTV satellite-free.
Hey, Frank, a little birdie told me you don't need a satellite dish to get DirecTV.
What's little birdie? Was it Jimmy the Sparrow?
It's a figure of speech. Point is, you can stream DirecTV over the internet now.
Oh, sure. Next you're going to tell me those big birds are made of metal and filled with people, right?
You mean airplanes?
Stream DirecTV without a satellite dish. Call 1-800-DirecTV. Terms and restrictions apply.
This is your Chargers linebacker, Deion Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LA Football Network. If this is your first time tuning in to the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Dan Wolkenstein was actually live at the Bolt today for the Chargers training camp practice. And if it looks like he's in somewhere of a dark basement, don't worry, he's not. He is actually just in one of the other rooms of the facility at the Bolt. The press conference is just wrapped up. We're going to recap everything that took place at practice today. And obviously, the elephant in the room with the biggest news about the Justin Herbert injury, latest news. So we're going to dissect that, go through all the reports on that. But first and foremost, Dan Wolkenstein, how are you, sir? How was practice today? I'm sure the weather was just peachy.
I'm not used to the difference between Costa Mesa and El Segundo. Costa Mesa, if you remember, you go there and I don't think I've been there and it wasn't blazing hot with no breeze. And El Segundo, it's like you're there for 20 minutes, it's hot, and then all of a sudden it's breezy, and then you're freezing and you forget a hoodie at home and you're going to Nordstrom Rack to find something for you last minute, which sounds like reality for me getting here. So, but El Segundo was good. You know, I think you can't help but feel the missing Justin Herbert there today. I think that was pretty evident, not just with the presence, but the play on the field. Like it's a very different training camp when number 10 is not behind center, and you see this very big difference in what a franchise quarterback looks like and the plays they can make versus those who maybe aren't the franchise quarterback getting paid what he's paid. But otherwise, you know, I think that definitely was kind of I don't want to say a cloud, but definitely on the minds of Chargers fans and lots of folks covering the team as well.
I have to ask, because you and I were actually at the press conference last Saturday when Jim Harbaugh was getting all of the questions as it related to Rashawn Slater at the time. And then the following Monday, the beginning of this week, Jim Harbaugh actually put out a disclaimer in terms of how he was going to address injuries moving forward. So I'm going to put the line at 4, because in truthfulness, I was just getting a little bit of the Harbaugh press conference. I didn't get a chance to actually listen to it in its entirety. Over or under 3.5 questions that were asked as it relates to Justin Herbert's injury.
Ooh, actually, in totality, it might be over, but it was all kind of follow up on the same type of question. But in typical Harbaugh form, as to be expected, there was a lot of references to the statement that the Chargers put out earlier today about the diagnosis and the going through something quote that is used quite often, as well as him not being permitted or not a doctor and is not willing to comment on things. So where things stand, let's just kind of get that out. Where things stand right now. Everybody saw the statement the Chargers put out, a plantar fascia injury. They have a 2-week diagnosis for him to be in the boot and then slowly ramp up. And then expectations are for him to be good, ready to go by week 1. So that's what was said. And that's only what is being referenced at this point. Justin Herbert was seen today in the locker room working out with, I think, Ladd McConkey, who was not there today. Jim Harbaugh today said that he is, quote, going through something. I'll let folks deduce what they think that means. But yeah, I think the over on the amount of times he's asked about Justin Herbert, and rightly so. But I think folks can understand now this coaching staff is very different than coaching staffs we've seen in the past, and they're pretty tight-lipped. They run a tight ship, and Jim Harbaugh is not about talking injuries. So that should be no surprise.
Let's dissect it real quick, Dan, because I know that was just sent Chargers fans into a panic this afternoon when they got that news. And I don't want to say conflicting, but and of course, Dan and I are not doctors. We're not going to pretend to be doctors. We're literally just going to diagnose as far as what's been reported today, because you had Daniel Popper in his article actually get some quotes from Dr. Kenneth Jung, who actually gave him, as it relates to a plantar fascia, there's a wide variety of things that could happen, whether it's just a plantar fasciitis or an actual tear. And then there was Jesse Morse, who on Twitter, who was commenting about the possibility of Herbert's injury, because we actually really don't know the severity of it. As it stands right now, as the statement said, doctors recommended that Justin Herbert be put in a walking boot for a period of 2 weeks and then slowly ramp up his playing time back on the field, which, of course, the biggest loss here, good news, bad news scenario, obviously taking Justin Herbert away from that time from the younger, newer receivers that he can build more of that rapport with. That's the bad. The good news is, initially, this doesn't sound like anything too serious. The expectation is that they said that he's going to be ready for week 1 of the regular season, which is great. If this is something that's going to happen, obviously taking place at this point in time is the best possible scenario that could come out of this. But Dan and I were talking about this. Justin Herbert has just looked so good to start off camp as it relates to guys that he's building rapport with. Joshua Palmer, obviously, I don't think that he's going to miss much of a beat if we're taking time away from him getting towards the regular season. We have already talked about the relationship that he has built with Ladd McConkey and how he has been turning heads in training camp. But you take some of those other receivers like the Brennan Rices, the DJ Charks, and some of the others as far as him getting more of that time to run this offense with, that's probably the biggest aspect in terms of, the loss here.
Sure.
I go into some of these quotes, Dan, from Daniel Popper's article with Dr. Kenneth Jung, and it was an interesting one that he had said, if it's something where they're putting him in a boot and they're saying it's an injury, which is specifically what the statement said today.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I wouldn't think, this is Dr. Jung talking, I wouldn't think it's plantar fasciitis, which is interesting. So again, plantar fasciitis, if you've had it, I've had it. It absolutely sucks. It makes walking on that foot just virtually impossible. Putting pressure on it absolutely is just killer pain. So depending on the type of level here that we're talking about, whether it's a tear, we don't know.
Yeah.
To the degree, we don't know. We'll know in time in terms of how Justin Herbert is going to progress from this. But
I'll say this.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish.
As it relates to now, him missing time is probably just the biggest loss here. And hopefully this recovery will bring him back in a 2.5 week period where he can get back up there. And hopefully this is not going to be something that's going to linger for him throughout the regular season. He probably will have to play through some pain, but in terms of actually being something that's going to keep him out for a long period of time, I don't foresee that happening. He finished practice yesterday after 3 runs. Even Jim Harbaugh said he was diagnosed after practice. So time will tell. But sorry, again, go ahead.
No, I would say this. Sweet Jumps says, "Tell me the sky isn't falling, Dan." I can't give you any concrete certainty of anything, and nobody can. And I think that's the important part. That's the biggest takeaway. Is anybody out there giving predictions or talking about what this injury is or is not? I think is a little irresponsible, if I'm being honest. But I will say this, based on how this staff has communicated things so far during camp and how cautious they are about everything they say and do is intentional. I was a bit surprised that the Chargers team put out the statement ahead of time, but I think part of that would be just it's easier to put out the statement ahead of time versus people freaking out when they don't see Justin out there today. So that I get. But when they give the diagnosis or time frame, that's what perked my ears, because this team does not do that. At least the new regime doesn't give timetables. It doesn't give injury updates. It's like they're going through something or the season's over. And so some of that is because this is Justin Herbert. But if I was a betting man and this staff and knowing Jim Harbaugh and how everybody talks about the abundance of caution, that's what this seems like. This seems like an abundance of caution. And I just would find it shocking that this staff and organization would go out on a limb like that with the prognosis that they gave and the time frame and expectations for coming back week one, unless they knew that that was like happening.
It's fair.
Because that just doesn't seem like a misstep that this staff would make.
Right.
If I'm being honest. Again, he was seen during today's practice in the training room, working out. I think it was with Vlad McConkey, who is going through something. I think I heard that some people saw him working on something with his foot. I'm not sure. But again, today was kind of a weird day, if I'm being honest, when it comes to people coming in and out. And it seemed like there was a mixture of veteran rest day mixed with people going through something, mixed with people getting dinged up with friendly fire, or a guy getting it out for a play or two, and all of that stuff. I think the takeaway is the staff is taking things very cautiously with everyone.
Abundance of caution.
And to your earlier point, like, yeah, is it ideal? Obviously not. And is it something that the Chargers team could use? No. Like, this is... But I think Chargers fans, if there's anything I can tell you, I don't think there's anything Chargers fans need to see more of from Justin Herbert or the media or this team. We have all... Anytime we're at practice now, I don't think anybody is looking at Justin shocked by what he's doing or hoping to see something different from Justin Herbert, right? Everything that this staff and that everybody is focusing in on, and the key narratives and the position battles and the folks who need to improve and the things that people are yearning for more information on, is everybody else. Who's catching the ball from Justin? Who's blocking for Justin? Who's running for Justin? Who's defending against Justin? And so without Justin there, the thing that's different is the entire offense looks different. Easton Stick is not Justin Herbert. Nobody is. But how much this team is going to miss with Justin Herbert not being there, I'm not sure. To your point, I mean, I don't think Ladd McConkey needs Justin Herbert. Ladd McConkey is dicing up corners regardless. Josh Palmer and Justin Herbert already have their thing. DJ Chark's already been him. I don't think Quentin Johnson is going to be better or worse because of Justin Herbert. I mean, obviously, he'll be better than with Justin Herbert, but you could still see improvements or what you need to see from Quentin Johnson without Justin Herbert being there. And if we're being real here, nobody wanted to see Justin Herbert during any of the preseason games. So does it suck? Yes. Is it that big of a deal right now? No. And you have to give the benefit of the doubt to the coaching staff and to the comms team and whoever comes out with those statements. They do things with a purpose. And I just don't, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Jake, I think people freak out.
In short, it could be worse.
Yes.
It could be worse.
If there was something that took Justin Herbert out between now and the start of the season, I guess it'd be that. I'd rather be nothing, but it could be worse, to your point. Yes. Jake, there's somebody in here who's talking about it. before we go any further, give the people they want.
Their favorite part of the show.
Before we go any further, let's pay the bill. Let's talk about our friends.
Yes. I want to remind everybody that BetOnline is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs this season, from baseball, golf, soccer, right up to the top fights of the UFC, MMA, and boxing. Every stat, every matchup, but even live odds and spreads while the games are played. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get in on the game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today. That's betonline.ag to get in on the action. Use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit for up to $250. Bet Online. The game starts here. Now, Dan, let's transition. Let's talk about practice today.
Real quick. One thing. Mark Matlock says, I had this injury. I couldn't put weight on my foot, used a cane, etc., etc. The part that I want to be careful with is we don't know what the injury is, other than we know what body part that's injured. That's it. So we don't really know what the injury actually is. It's like he has an injury to his arm, is injured to a certain bone or muscle. Again, like, let's just be careful here and be responsible with what we are and are not calling this thing. Go ahead. I apologize.
It's all right, Dan. To transition, let's go to practice today, where you're currently still sitting at the Bolt. Dan, you were out there on the field covering practice today. What did you see? What were some of your takeaways? And we'll obviously mix this in with some of the comments today from Coach Harbaugh, from Tony Jefferson, and from Alohi Gilman.
Yeah. Today was definitely a day for the defense, I'll tell you that much. And call that the Justin Herbert, or lack of missing of Justin Herbert, or just the defense playing well. You know, I think you saw the secondary playing well. I think the play of the day on offense was Josh Palmer's catch. He had a touchdown catch in red zone drills, I believe. Brendan Rice had a nice catch up the middle, explosive play. J.K. Dobbins had a great run, bounce outside. Obviously, Tarheeb Still, after a brief kind of friendly fire where he, I think JT Woods collided, came back and ended 11-11 with a pick six to end the day. Max Duggan was quarterback. But the defense won today. I really think Jim Harbaugh talked about in the press conference later on, where the defense really impressed him, and it's only going to make the team better. And you're hearing the defensive players, the communication, and it's so glaring now without there being music. You hear it all. And the communication that this defense and the offense too is putting out there. The defense looks good, and it's early, obviously, and I think Chargers fans are always going to be a little scarred and temper expectations, but I'm pretty confident that this Chargers team defense is going to be better. And Christian Fulton, again, he's looking good. Like, he is looking really good. You heard Jesse Minter kind of give him praise and confidence in his abilities, and talked a little bit about kind of what some previous coaches and people that have worked with him have said about Christian, and how well he plays when he has confidence in his coaching staff and in the scheme. The secondary so far, has played well. Like, the defense won the day. That would probably be my takeaway from today.
Has Christian Fulton, over the last couple of days, has he started to put a little bit of your worries to rest a little bit? I know you're still wanting this team to go out and get a corner, and trust me, I do not think it's out of the realm of possibility between now and the regular season. I know we're talking training camp. I know we're talking practice, but you hear the comments from Jesse Minter at yesterday's practice talking about he doesn't just have a chip on his shoulder. He has a boulder on it. And yesterday he had 4 pass breakups. And then you mentioned what he did today during practice, which is great. Is he starting to calm a little of your worries?
A little. The
way you said that was priceless.
No. Anytime you answer
really
with a question point and a question mark, that usually
got really up there.
I would say a little bit. Do I think this Chargers team would benefit from a veteran corner who can challenge for CB1? Absolutely. And something that perked my ear when I heard Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator, talk about at his press conference yesterday, was when he was talking through the corners. He went through Christian Fulton and Asante Samuel Jr. Those guys are doing their thing, right? They're impressing and they're looking good. And the rest of the guys, we'll see how much they can challenge them for positions later on. I don't know what that means, to be honest. I don't know what the ceiling is of those rookies this year versus others. So it's going to be interesting to see. But if it was me and I was Joe Hortiz and I knew that the ceiling for the cornerbacks can only go so high currently, and I knew there was a free agent out there that could take that ceiling or maybe the floor a bit higher, that's what I'm doing.
I mold this into, I took away the comments from Alohi Gilman today when he was talking about Jesse Minter's scheme, just in terms of his demeanor, bleeding confidence into the rest of the players, finding ways to maximize players' potential, which we knew about Jesse Minter before he came in here. He's going to put guys in the best possible position to where it accentuates their strengths of their game and put them in the best position to succeed. And whether or not Dan left me on the stream right now, or if the room that he went in just went completely dark, who knows? But good connection problems to have at the Bolt right now. You back?
Back.
Okay, we're good. Okay, yes. Great. Lost you there for a minute. I thought you were going to have another Jeff Miller moment, which is
no. Lights still on. We're good. Lights
are still on. Okay, great. We're still good to go. I'm not sure if you were catching what I was saying, Dan. But I was just talking about Alohi Gilman's comments about Jesse Minter's scheme, bleeding confidence into the players, putting them in a position where they know that they're going to succeed, which we already knew about Jesse Minter in terms of what he wanted to do and what he's done with his players at Michigan previously, basically playing to their strengths is how they do it. So I felt that today from Tony Jefferson talking about it. I felt it today from Alohi Gilman talking about it. But again, that along with Steve Clinkscale, when we're just going back and talking about the cornerback room in general, that's what's given me confidence. And we've seen that so far in Steve Clinkscale rotating these corners around a lot. You've seen a lot of guys end up coming out and making plays, undrafted free agents. We know that Tony Jefferson has had interceptions and some pass breakups thus far. Obviously, the rise of Terheap still thus far in a short period of time. Asante Samuel Jr. seems to once again be having a good training camp. And you have guys like AJ Finley, who seemingly right now is in the lead for safety number 3. So it seems like this room is, as a unit, as it was talked about today at the press conference, is really coming together.
Yeah. The secondary, and there's a comment in here, maybe I'm scarred. I do think that this coaching staff gives this defense a bump for sure. I tried to not take isolated incidents and turn them into more or less than they really are. But when things become a theme, when they happen multiple times, then it becomes kind of a story or something that I kind of recognize. And people talk about like this coaching staff and the attention to detail. When one person says it, whatever. When the entire staff and when every single player that comes up talking about them says it, it's a theme. This coaching staff prides itself on teaching and adaptability, and this team being versatile and teaching in a way that's easy to understand. But it's another thing to hear all the players echo that, because it's not just about what is being said, but it's about what's being heard. And so I think that theme, but that specific theme, was never said with the previous regime. And it's being said all the time here. And Alohi Gilman talked about it at length today, about this new staff and how it just bleeds through every single position. Like you mentioned, the defense communicates, and they went through a bunch of goal line, short yardage situations, and the defensive front looks good, and they're kind of building that wall. I think Jim Harbaugh mentioned that today. The defense was really impressive, and building that wall at the defensive front, like it's a big deal. That's something that's eluded the Chargers team for a long time. We'll see again. Like there's big rocks on this team that are still waiting, right? We still haven't seen Junior Colson back out there. I saw him out with trainers again today. I think he's close. I do. We'll see what Christian Fulton can become. Terheap still, I think he's going to be. Wow, do you see that? I think he's going to be the slot corner. He has it, man. He does. A name to remember. I think you heard a couple of people start praising him, but Jared Patterson, the running back, I think he makes this team. He just is constantly getting praise. He's constantly making the smart, right runs. He's getting, slaps on the behind by his coaching staff. You're seeing the physicality and the drills, and don't be surprised if he is on this, actually on the 53.
For
if
context,
it was up to me, if I'm predicting, it's Dobbins, Edwards, Vidal, and Patterson.
For context, Dan's obviously live texting me from practice, just giving me some updates. So he's giving me ones, Dupree just lit up McFadden, which I'll ask for more context on that in a second, talking about Joshua Palmer had a touchdown during red zone drills today. And then one comes through that says Patterson is making the team. And in my brain, I'm thinking to myself, again, because all of a sudden this Chargers team has a running back stable that seems pretty stacked and possibly even very formidable with the different skill sets that you have there. And even mixed up in this, we kind of forget about the fact that Elijah Dotson, who was last year's preseason favorite, is still on this team. So all of a sudden you're talking about 6 running backs that are part of this group. And Dan, just based off of what you're saying and what you've seen, and obviously you mentioned it, the coaches have had public praise for Jared Patterson. You believe that he's going to be the one that's going to unseat Spiller should this team keep 4 running backs on the final roster?
Yes, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he is, personal opinion, that he's above Isaiah Spiller right now. I haven't seen, I'll rephrase. I've seen some really good things from Jared Patterson, and I've seen really good things from J.K. Dobbins. And Vidal flashes as well. I can't say the same for Isaiah Spiller right now and call the short end of the stick in the last couple of years, whatever you want. It's going to be tough for Spiller. Now, is it impossible? No, there's still lots of time, but I don't know. I'm not going there. Yeah, McFadden got touched, if you will.
Yeah, please tell me where exactly McFadden was. Was this jumbo package? Was he in at fullback? Was he going in motion? Where the hell did they have him this time?
Yeah, and I don't want to not get into crazy specifics, but in short, Patterson, he was trying to catch. McFadden was out catching a pass and ended up. It looked like a drop, and then Dupree was right there as it happened, and it was pretty which one of these things is more weird, seeing 71 over there being targeted or seeing Bud Dupree in coverage? And it was a pretty funny
It's definitely moment. 71. If you're going to ask me, I along with Steve Hagelin was shocked when we were standing there on the opposite side of the field and we see 71 trotting across and literally standing next to Joshua Palmer. It just felt way out of place, but I loved every bit of it.
Yeah. And then I would say also, going back to Patterson, I think he's big for them on special teams too. So this running game is going to be night and day. I know, there's the faith in Greg Roman and all the schemes that he's never not had a running game. But you look at the running backs that they've had, you look at the offensive line that has gotten beefed up, you look at kind of the balanced work that they're going on. That's what is kind of showcasing and kind of pushing through here. Joey update. Joey went into the locker room or went into the training facility with trainers, was reported, as did Khalil Mack for a bit, but I think it looked like it was probably nothing more than, I don't know this, but it appeared it could very well just be a veteran thing. And they got to go inside for a bit, come back out. No big deal. But yeah, Joey Bosa came back. All was fine. Was in the plays. Had his helmet on. Went in there for getting 11 on 11. It was good. Joey Bosa was good. He looked really good. Jim Harbaugh even talked about him in the press conference. He had a great day today. So I think today was probably just recognizing that this is going to be a different look in training camp for the next couple weeks without Justin Herbert there. And that might not necessarily be a bad thing because, and I think what's important here is this Chargers team without Justin Herbert in the previous regime, it'd be a little tough because Justin Herbert was having to be Superman. And when Superman ain't walking through that door, nobody else was. This team is built different. Like this team is built to withstand stuff like that. This team is built to, I mean, people were already upset that Justin Herbert wasn't going to throw as much. And now, okay, well, if Easton Stick has to come in there, an emergency, in case of emergency, break glass, like this would be the team to kind of do it. A Jim Harbaugh, a Greg Roman offense where they have the tight ends that are doing stuff. They have a mobile quarterback like Easton Stick. Go back to what happened in San Francisco when they looked like there with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. You got a running game. You got a Jesse Minter defense. Like that's kind of how they've won. So again, like, does it feel good that Justin Herbert's not there? Of course not. But it's a very different landscape right now. But yeah, that's kind of it for the main takeaways that I had. And I kind of want to do like a short and sweet one today. I'm not gonna get home forever, but wanted to bring this to folks as quickly as I could.
Dan Wolkenstein has a long commute ahead of himself.
Yeah. Tony Jefferson, I would recommend folks going in there and watch the Tony Jefferson press conference. He gave a ton. He talked about, I forget exactly the term he used, but
building a bully.
Building a bully was a quote that I love that this staff is trying to do here in LA. Talked about Derwin James just being like I think he called him a maniac, I think is what he used the term. But he talked about AJ Finley stepping up. Really talks about, it was really interesting hearing him, like the scout in him, because he was a scout last year for a bit with his year off, hearing some of that come through. And he talked about how he actually scouted Ladd McConkey last year. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, that guy is good, but he recognized his blocking abilities. That was what was impressive to him and how excited he was to kind of be back home for the home team here in LA with the Bolts. There was a lot today, but I think if I were to just summarize the day, I think you feel the loss of Justin Herbert. That's obvious. The defense is looking good. Now, is it perfect? No. The running game is going to be better. The physicality is going to be definitely better. And, I'll give you all the Jim Harbaugh phrases you want. They're attacking it with an enthusiasm. Each day they're stacking bricks. They're gliding up to 3,000, whatever you want to say. Like this team is going towards a trajectory with a common goal of being healthy and being right and being good by week 1. And so everything that I see this Chargers team do is in that context. What will help this team be better for week 1 to be healthy to start the season? That's what they're going to do. I see that with the Junior Colson, how they're treating him. I see that with how they're treating Justin Herbert in this injury. I see that with how they're treating the veterans. I see that how they're treating the 1s versus 2s and 3s. All of it. Like this coaching staff, everyone, they tell you what they're going to do. Like, you got to believe them. So I genuinely think that, as sickening as it was to see that from Justin Herbert news stuff, like, and maybe I'm the optimist for 5 seconds, but it was telling to me.
Maybe, and only for 5 seconds?
Yeah, fine. But it was telling to me that this staff put out that message with that specificity. They've never done that. There's a reason they did that. And I just don't think that they would overextend themselves unless they knew. Like, that they didn't need to say those things. Like, he literally, given Jim Harbaugh's mantra of things, unless the season's ending, they're going through something.
Could have just given the usual coach rhetoric saying it's day to day, we're going to handle it with caution, which, I mean, kind of sounds like it, but I get what you're saying, Dan, in terms of having those specifics after a diagnosis. If you didn't know the severity of it, why wouldn't you address it? On top of that, I also get it, because if you chose not to address it and nobody saw Justin Herbert practicing, we already know that Jim Harbaugh would have been getting the wave of those questions during the press conference. And he would not be giving any answers to, much like he did today, and much like he talked about how he would be addressing injuries moving forward. In short, he will not. But I get your point.
Yeah. I apologize. There's a lot of folks in the chat that I haven't got a chance to go into. Oh, Guilty as Charged was here. What's up, fellas? We saw you guys last weekend. I hope all was well. Did I give every updates? I can kind of go through real quick. I gave the update on Joey Bosa. Let's see. There was one person that talked about the only thing that we're not going to see is the defense isn't going to be as tested now without Justin Herbert there with Easton Stick instead. That's true. I mean, you can't really say otherwise. The defense is going to have an easier job now going up against Easton Stick and the ones versus Justin Herbert the ones. That is true. Yeah, so Guilty as Charged just came in and said Adam Schefter kind of poured cold water on the injury on ESPN tonight for what it's worth. I think cold water is a good thing for Chargers fans, I'm guessing. I don't know. I didn't see it, but
we're not pouring gasoline on the fire. Pouring
yes.
cold water on it. Yeah.
Yes. Let's go through a couple questions here. People are asking, how does Alt look? Alt looks good, man. Like, he looks good. He's a real deal. He's not Malik Neighbors. He doesn't play that position, but he's going to save your franchise quarterback. And so, you know, if you're going to prioritize your franchise wide receiver or franchise offensive tackle, they chose to go offensive tackle. And I don't think they're regretting it for 1 second. Joe Alt is good. Now, again, trial by fire going up against arguably the best defensive front in the NFL, at least the edge group. I think Joe Alt is doing just fine. I don't know anything on Sawyer, to be honest. So we'll see. But who knows?
Here's some more context on it, Dan, in clarification of the cold water term. Basically, Schefter was saying the Chargers were less sure on a timeline than the statement would have indicated, which sounds more like Jim Harbaugh to me in terms of how they would go about it. Because, yes, they put the recommendation of being in a boot for 2 weeks and then the slow ramp-up period to progressing and practicing after the fact. So in terms of overall return, I get that. It's not like we can say definitively that we're going to see Justin Herbert back out on that field in exactly 2 weeks. So
I don't know. It would be, but again, if that was the case, this just does not seem like the staff that would say that and give an expectation on timetable without knowing something. I don't know. Like, and again, maybe this was a mistake on the staff's part. Maybe they overextended themselves and this would be something that they learned from and it doesn't happen again. Who knows? But what I would say is, again, they haven't done this before, giving out like specifics in terms of timetable or what it is. And so what that means, I don't know. So, I don't know. We'll see. But again, like, abundance of caution. That's what they've done this entire time. That's what that's what this tells me it is. So we'll see. I know we're a little long here, Jake, but anything else before we get here?
Negative, sir. I know you got a long commute ahead of you. Sorry, I was looking. Sorry, I keep looking for words. That's what I'm looking for. It could be worse. I hope to God I don't eat those words, obviously. It could be worse. But no, in terms of practice today, great coverage by you, Dan. Appreciate it. You have a long commute ahead of you, so get the hell out of there before they turn the lights off on you permanently and you have an actual Jeff Miller moment. But we're going to be back this weekend. I know as the Chargers have an off day, I believe it's on Saturday, right before their joint practice with the Rams. We'll come back here and we'll do a kind of a full eclipse of the last 2 weeks of practice, which should be a lot of fun. Lots of news to get into, but wanted to do a short live update while Dan was at the facility today. Obviously give our 2 cents as it relates to Justin Herbert, where the team was at, what practice was like today. So appreciate everybody coming out for a short show today, but we will be back this weekend.
For Jake Hefner, you can find him at Jake T. Hefner, myself at Dan W Sports. Thank you all so much. We'll have more coverage as this goes on, but until then, I'm going to drive home. Jake, it's been a pleasure, sir. I'll give you a call here in a bit. For those everywhere else, again, you can find us everywhere you find your podcast, LAC_Unleashed on X, as well as YouTube. Have a great evening, everybody. Fingers crossed. We're all going to get through this together. We got this. And we'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed.
I won't let my active psoriatic arthritis joint symptoms define me.
Emerge as you. Tremfya guselkumab is proven to significantly reduce joint pain, stiffness, and swelling in adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Some patients even reported less fatigue as assessed by survey 1 week prior. Results may vary. Tremfya is taken by injection 6 times a year after 2 starter doses at weeks 0 and 4.
Serious allergic reactions may occur. Tremfya may increase your risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms of infection, including fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough. Tell your doctor if you had a vaccine or plan to.
Emerge as you. Learn more about Tremfya, including important safety information, at tremfya.com or call 1-877-578-3527. See our ad in Food and Wine magazine. For patients prescribed Tremfya, cost support may be available.